Okay, so I've read a few interesting articles about the more stats side of FPL, so I just thought I'd talk about this more statistical approach. The team I've got on screen here isn't my team, it's a purely stat-based team that I've read an article about that I'll link in the description, and another article I read which I thought was something worth talking about is this new system of VPPM instead of just PPM, which is basically looks at the value per million per minute, which basically excludes the 2 points you get just for starting a game, because that can sort of skew the results, sort of when you're comparing, let's say, Charlie Austin to Aguero, because in the time when the cheap striker's blanking and Aguero's blanking, it really drags Aguero down to make it look like the value per million is more similar than it is, because obviously when they're both scoring, Aguero will score a lot higher. So by just removing all the blanks and just looking at who scores bigger when they score, it really gives you a much better result. Okay, now a few things that obviously this doesn't take into account is someone like Gross has gone up in price from last season. So I personally don't think he's going to be worth that £7 million, so he's someone who I'd get rid of. Another thing that obviously stats don't take into account is who's been out of the World Cup. Obviously a lot of Spurs players missing, so Spurs boys Davis and Ericsson, not as good as they would be. Davis I actually think is a better option because of the World Cup, because Rose isn't there. But someone like Ericsson, I would probably get rid of myself, even though he's still not an awful option. He's just not got the likes of Kane and Son there. Another thing this doesn't take into account is no City attackers, obviously because of rotation, but obviously that's not as much of the problem because of the start of the season. So if I was looking at this team, I would definitely look to get Aguero in there, because obviously this is more of a personal thing, but I like to have two premium players, then I've got two reliable captains and two reliable sources of points. That's a personal thing there, so what I would do is I would look to get Aguero into this side. Obviously, again, someone like a Nautovic, I'll probably look more towards a Ray Charleston, a Mkhitaryan, and a Lucas Moura. Because obviously something that the stats doesn't take into account as well is someone like Mkhitaryan, someone like Lucas Moura, who obviously had poor seasons, struggled to get minutes last season, but however this season, I personally will be expecting big things from someone like Richarlison, whose stats were incredible when under Marco Silva. He's back under Marco Silva again now for hopefully a full season, so hopefully he can carry that over a longer period of time. And also there is the issue of one £4 million goalkeeper, which I know some people don't like, but I don't mind it. I mean, Fabianski had the best VPPM of any player, I think, last season. Definitely out of all the goalkeepers. I think he beat De Gea quite significantly. So I really don't mind not rotating him, because last season I rotated Foster and Pope for a lot of the season. And it was Foster and Fabianski I was rotating for a lot of the season. Two great options at 4.5 million, and it was just so annoying that the one on my bench kept getting 11. So if it's a goalkeeper that I really like Fabianski, I really don't mind giving him that spot consistently week in, week out. Okay, so after rejiggling the team, this is the team that I would consider using, and is probably the safest team I think I've created so far. Perhaps lacks a tad balance in the midfield, but I don't think that's too much of an issue, because when we look at someone like Firmino, to drop him into the midfield for Ericsson, and then all of a sudden people would say it was more balanced, but for me personally I just think midfielders and forwards is pretty much interchangeable for me. Your defence is where you want to have your solid foundation, you want to plan for the future, not too much rotation, premium defenders, and then then everything else then is just your attack, and that's sort of like your bonus then to build on that strong foundation. But if you think about it like this is basically an £11 midfielder. I mean, can you think about it this way? If I swapped Ericsson for Mkhitaryan and Mkhitaryan for an Nautovic, all of a sudden people would say, oh, that team looks more balanced because I've got, more money in midfield and strikers are more evenly spent. But again, I just see them as very interchangeable, so it doesn't bother me too much that, I've got more up front and less in midfield, because it's the same money, the same amount of points really. So it doesn't really bother me too much. So one thing that does worry me about this team is we've lost our £5 million guy on the bench, which would be a nice thing to have, especially when you've got two 4.5 midfielders. It would be nice if one of them cost 5 million, but it's not the end of the world, because realistically you don't want to play your £5 million midfielder much, if at all. He is just there for security and to add balance. So this team, one thing we've done is we brought Mendy in. I think he just seems like he's going to be in line with Robinson, Davis and Alonso with what he provides attackingly. That's my personal opinion. So I just think that's an easy 0.5 million to save there. Ray Charlison for an Arnautovic again. Arnautovic's fixtures are tough. There's going to be a lot more competition for places in that team now. So again, I just think that's something that I like making. Mkhitaryan again. I just think him and Lucas Moura both provide better options than Arnautovic to start the season. And yeah, we brought Aguero in because I want that. Could easily be Aubameyang if you wanted, but then the problem we'd have is we'd have no City attackers. So yeah, this is a team that I'm personally like quite a lot. Obviously we've abandoned the whole looking at overall ownerships, but I mean we've got Zaha for that, you know, player who's got big overall ownerships. Probably quite important to have him in your team. You know, 33% selected by. But yeah. And against someone like Alonso that we've got in this team, he probably not offers the value he used to, but I mean, might not even start anymore. Probably should be priced at £6 million, considering now he's moved back to a left back position. But I still think he's going to be probably the highest scoring defender if he starts week in, week out this season. Definitely the most consistent, the one that we can rely on the most. But if he does lose his place to Emerson, then Emerson at 5.5 offers terrific value, and we can just, you know, rejiggle that midfield to get a much stronger balance to the side. So yeah, that's it. I will be showing you probably my favourite team so far in the upcoming days, or perhaps even sometime next week, which does have Salah, Aguero and Aubameyang in it. It took me a while to build that team because it's really hard to get a team with all those players in, but obviously I'll go into that in the next video. So yeah, please like, comment and subscribe and follow me on Twitter. Links in the description.